Okay, welcome to the fifth module of the judging module. Today we'll be covering, similar to the argumentation module, 5 things to not do as a judge. And I want to start this off with a trigger warning. I'm going to talk about many truths in this video. In many moments it's going to be me just ranting about my personal experience being judged by in general, the international debating community. So if you think like that's going to be hard on you, if you think like you don't want to hear these hard truths, then just leave the video. You don't have to watch it. But if you think this is going to be spicy and entertaining and fun for you, I hope it lives up to your standards. Okay, so here are the 8 things that you should not do as a judge. Obviously, there are more things, but these are my top 8. So the first thing, and this is the thing that I really hate the most, so if you're ever judging with me, please don't do it, is to just agree with the judge because they have rep. And let's be very clear to differentiate these two things. This is not the judge persuading you directly with logic and with specific things that happened in the round as to why the call is the way it is. This is you explicitly just agreeing with the judge with minimum to no like fighting back as to why the call should be the way it is. The best way for you to notice these people is they do things like, for example, say, well, I think this is my call, but I can't be flipped. Or whenever they're asked on a comparison you disagree with, actually, after thinking a bit about it, I'm not really that sure on it, because they realize that their call is different. And the problem here is that it firstly shows to the judge that you are not firm in your intentions, which actually harms you, because it shows that you are not so confident or not so adequate as a judge to believe in what you're saying. So your promotion or your career path as a judge is decreased rather than increased, because the judge has a wrong, not a wrong, but a negative perception on you, and will most likely thank you in the feedback. Like, I would prefer someone to actually argue with me and to give like substantive points, even if I don't agree with them, as opposed to someone who right off the bat, just because it's me, tells me, well, actually, I'm not that certain in it, or I can be flipped, or blah blah blah, or whatever. Or you just the discussion being like 20 seconds, like the chair just says one thing and then they just go like, okay, I flip. Obviously there must be more to this. Now, the other end of the spectrum to this is like judges that really engage and really argue with their chairs. I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm telling you, if you just like auto change your decision or do this, you're not making a good impression on your chair judge. So don't just randomly agree with judges because they have rep. And also, by the way, there are many high rep judges that either do wrong calls or they themselves do, for example, rep calls, which we're going to talk in a second, which you can be the counterbalance to. Like, you can counter them, argue with them, and snap them back into reality. I remember when I first started judging, and I was winging more with people, I all the time saw chairs doing rep calls. I was constantly arguing with them, and in certain cases they flipped. So this is a good thing to do. Cool. So don't do that. The second thing is, do not do rep calls. This is the one thing that I hate most as a speaker. Like, the first thing is the one thing I hate most when I'm judging. The second thing is when I hate most as a speaker. I want to be very clear. Why are rep calls bad? Because we all kind of agree, but let's actually explain why rep calls is bad. The main reason is that people are investing their time, their energy into this game, their money as well. They're extremely passionate about this type of thing. And rep calls are inherently unfair things. Because what is a rep call? A rep call is even when the debate is pointing to the other direction. So, for example, a team is losing, or the team doesn't substantiate their claims, don't respond to responses, don't weigh their claim or do things like that, just by the virtue of their position within the debating community, their achievements, or their reputation, they should get the first or the second or something like that, or they should get a higher ranking than they should, even if another team is able to comprehensively beat them in the round. So this is a shift of the material reality, right? Because the material reality points to one thing, but because this team has rep, they're able to change and like bend basically the fabrics of reality to make the judge believe that actually the case is the way that it is, and it favors them. So this is unfair, right? This is simply put, there is no other way to put it, unfair, and it harms the participant and harms people that are trying to do their best in order to perform in this game and trying to improve, and like they're trying to have a fighting chance. So here there are two types of judges. And I want to start with the first type of judges that are the people that I will never persuade. And you can, like, again, close the video right now if you don't really want to. These are the type of judges that it doesn't matter what you tell them. It doesn't matter what you explain to them. They will just simply like these people and want to give it to them. There are broadly two reasons for why this is the case. The first is they either have a cult of personality towards these people, and usually this is, how do you say, circuit based. So for example, North American judges absolutely always giving it to the top North American teams, Asian judges absolutely all the time giving it to the top Asian judges, and like feeling a pressure not to do this. I know this is a generalization, but if you've done debating as long as I have for the past 3 years, you really notice these patterns, and you really seen it. Actually, the only circuit that, at least from my experience, that I've noticed that where this isn't a problem is the continental European. And by the way, I'm excluding all of Iona here because Iona has this exact problem. I've noticed it last week at LSE. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago at LSE Open? So like the only circuit where people are not like biased in this way is the Central European one. Their judges actually don't care about rep, and they would give you, how you say, the third and the fourth if you end up screwing up in this moment. So these people that judged in this particular way, they have built such a cult of personality towards these people that it is categorically impossible for them to change their opinions and to not give the rep call. Or like it's super hard. This is the first reason. The second reason is many of these people are actually friends, and many of these people, when they're judging each other, don't want to thank their friends or don't want to not give it to them, or you really have to do a great job to beat back that team, and then they say something along the lines of, oh, it was very close, it was such a small margin, but that team should win. I have experienced this maybe 100+ times, like while I'm debating. For sure, tens of times I've seen this or rep calls being given. So these are the types of judges that I'll never persuade you. Like maybe the best I can tell you, try to like control your ignorance, so to speak. But it's probably not gonna work. Who are the judges that I can actually persuade, or I think I can persuade here? These are the type of judges that I think massively would watch this video, that are like new, that have just started out judging, that may be new chairs, that maybe don't have that much experience. And the reason you want to give the rep call, and I understand it, don't worry, is because you feel as if this is the comforting thing to do, right? You feel like, if I give it to this team, then that's the safe bet, right? Most likely they're going to be the ones winning the debate, and things like that. Because you're how do you say, you're not confident in your abilities. You're not. You may think that you are gaslighting yourself to believe that they should be winning and things like that. Don't do this. Just don't do this. Like there is no other way for me to say it other than this. This is you prioritizing your self interest. Instead of the adequate representation of the game. Why is this true? Because when you when you do this, the reasoning you do this is because you're afraid either A, that team will tank you in the feedback and lower your probability of going forward in the debate, for example, breaking to quarter semis and stuff like that, or secondly, that they'll spread rumors about you within the debating community, that you're a bad judge, cause drama, etc., etc. I understand that this is horrible. And I understand that in a perfect world this shouldn't happen. But when you judge, and I truly believe this, you have a moral responsibility towards the community that you are trying to arbitrate what is the correct call within the debate. What is, or at least what is the true approximation of a correct call within the debate. Obviously, debate is subjective, but there are some guidelines for which we can objectify debating and make it, make the right decision. This inherently stops you from doing that because you are prioritizing, again, your own self-interest, you're giving the wrong decision, and you're not upholding this moral standard. I get it. Maybe to some people, judging isn't that important, but believe me, for the participants, for the people trying to give them their all, for the people that are countlessly going to tournaments, countlessly doing drills, countlessly paying money for this debate, and maybe hopefully countlessly watching this YouTube channel as well. This is like something super important, and you shouldn't prioritize your own self-interest or your moving forward, and you shouldn't be scared really of these type of things, and you should always try to do what is the right call. This is like simply morally imperative. So I beg you, if you feel like you are creating these thoughts in your head, make yourself a second voice within your head that tells you, am I being scammed here? Is this really the right thing to do? Or just use all of the things that are in the previous video that we use as metrics, like whether something is proven, whether something is impacted, whether something is weighed, whether something is responded to, like normal debate justifying things in order to make your call the way it should be. Cool. So don't do rep calls. Third bad thing that you shouldn't do. Don't just buy random things without analysis. And this is like a rampant problem within judging. Many judges just have a super low bar of what is an acceptable argument. Inherently, what you are doing, and this is something we've covered in the previous modules, is you are an average reasonable voter who is able to track and follow logical chain and evaluate it between different things. Logical chains require justifications. There are burdens and analysis within the debate. That's how we're looking at the quality of the material presented. I've heard some judges say, oh, but that's not responded to, so it automatically must be true. No. That's not true. Like you have different burdens to arguments and different justifications. A very simple trick that you could ask yourself is always when someone says something, why is something true? Just simply asking yourself, why is something true? If they like say argument and provide literally one sentence of justification for that thing, and then 7 impacts, which is something that I've seen people do, then maybe this isn't a viable argument strategy within the debate. Maybe they didn't prove their argument. Maybe there is more than one burden to be explained within this argument. So please, for the love of God, try to evaluate things holistically. Try to look at this is just for analysis, but also like for ways that things respond, for explicit and implicit weighing, and all of these type of things. Try to obviously don't be super interventionist. The firm line here is not, they said this argument, but I don't think that's true because reason 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that's just responding or strawmanning their argument. Try to adequately evaluate it. But the point is that you should also not be blind, and you should also evaluate the logic that is presented. So there is a middle ground between these two things where you should exist, where you're both not over penalizing an argument and both evaluating the how proven it is, rather than just saying, okay, they said this, so it must be true if it's not responded to. Cool. Fourthly, don't auto-give team forts. As well, like I want to be honest, this isn't something I've seen rampantly happen a lot, but from time to time I see judges doing it. So basically, it mostly comes up in knifing, where a judge might go, oh, they stabbed them, so auto fort. No. If you read the guidelines, knife within British parliamentary debating, whether it's one team knifing themselves or a closing team knifing their opening, it just means that you are not supposed to take into consideration the second idea that is presented within the round. That team might have other arguments, other rebuttal, other framing, other weighing, that are contributions that you can evaluate in the debate, even if there is a stab. A stab doesn't mean auto fourth in many of these cases. Or one crazy argument also doesn't mean auto fourth, because they may have other contributions within the round. In general, the logic is the only way they can be an auto fourth is if you compare them to the third team within the debate and you think they're losing. And still, that's not an auto fourth because you are comparing them to the most likely team that they have a chance to take the third in. So try to judge holistically. Don't auto fourth teams. Be respectful to them, and don't do things like that. Just in general, don't jump into simplistic evaluation and like, oh, that team is auto fourth. Fifthly, don't judge by counting arguments or like in general about how many things teams say. So there are these judges that, for example, a debate might have a core clash, let's say, something where most teams spend their time arguing on. But if a team were to have some other arguments or some other lines that are in the debate, they totally disregard who might be winning that clash, or even if a team wins that core clash, they might still give it to the other team because, well, they had this one-liner that you didn't respond to, or, well, they had this separate argument and things like that. Like, this is not an exercising game where we're counting 2 versus 5 arguments or something like that, or we're counting the amount of material that teams provide. No. We are evaluating it to a certain extent quantitatively, but also qualitatively mainly, and what types of things that we can evaluate in terms of like clear weighing, implicit weighing, rebuttal, and proof of arguments. A team cannot just win just by having more arguments. And I know the judges know this, like they know that this is the rule, but in practice they don't really follow it. If they're constantly doing things like we're looking at, but they had this one line that they didn't respond to. Of course, certain clashes can be evaluated this way. But only if, I would say, the second thing that they talked about is adequately proven, is adequately impacted, and is adequate to weight. Absent of these type of things is just another argument within the debate that may or may not be relevant and is not a sole reason to win. I've literally had justifications where a judge would tell me, you win the clash, but because the other side has a principle and you don't win it by that big of a margin, then it's a wash, and then the principle weighs out. Even though, like, the practical clash is way more important than the principle, and it also responds to the principle. And like the judge just randomly decides to do it. Again, this might be more associated with biased judging again, where just the judge wanted to give it to that team because she's from the same circuit as them, like I covered in the previous things that I talked to. But this is the more or less mechanism of how this should work, and you shouldn't just count arguments. Sixthly, don't auto-give wins based on a left-wing bias or losses based on negative bias towards right-wing ideas. I have heard things like, well, the Democrats are always good, or social movements are always beneficial to society, or things like, radical redistribution, that's 100% a good impact within the debate. These things are statements. These statements need to be justified with explanations within the debate. Absent these statements, I have no idea whether this is a good or a bad thing. Think about it this way. I could stand, if like this were to be a right-wing bias, and I were to stand up and say, like, banning abortion is always good. You know, like if we did the flip side, if imagine a world where debating wasn't left-wing bias and it was right-wing biased, you would most likely, if you're a viewer and you're left-wing, you would have a natural reaction, but that's not like necessarily true. Well, guess what? 50% of the population, or maybe more, feels the same way when you are doing this exact same exercise. Impacts have to be justified. You have to give reasons as to why something is important, the same way as we covered in the argumentation module in the impacting section. And you also need to explain and weigh different ideas. Conversely, if a team were to explain a right-wing idea, impact it, and weigh it within the debate, you should take this as a adequate consideration within the round. You shouldn't judge this based on random predispositions. Nowhere is it said that the average informed voter is left-wing biased or has left-wing political leanings. If we look at the world population, by the way, the average informed voter is much, much more conservative if we look at it that way. But for the sake of neutrality, right, an impact has to be justified, and you need to basically give reasons for why this is the case in order to make it persuasive. So please don't just auto-give things based on left-wing ideas. 7. Not responding to teams for when they ask for feedback. This is like not necessarily a judging thing, but there is a rampant problem within our community, and this is especially for top IAs and CAs who, when they judge a competition, then you message them either on Discord or on Messenger or on Instagram, and you're asking for feedback, and they just, I don't know, they don't respond to you ever. They don't see your questions, they don't care about it, and it's like totally gone. This is a huge issue because, firstly, teams paid money for this competition. Even if you judged for free, that still doesn't give you a moral justification for you not to do this. Like, you still owe an obligation as a judge to provide to them personal feedback. Now, obviously, you if you already did it and like a team writes back with a couple of questions then the other day, then maybe like it's not really that you're not really that much obliged to answer them. But for sure, especially for closed rounds, because this is the true criminality where they just get a ranking and they never see an explanation as to why that's the case. That's a horrible thing. Always try to respond. And here's a pro tip, by the way. If it's a closed round, and when the round is done, there are these softwares, Loom, Vidyard, even OBS that I'm using right now, that you can simply use them to record a quick OA in 15 minutes so that they at least get the justification or the rationale for the call so that they can understand it. Don't do this, guys. This is horrible. People can't improve because of this. They've paid money. You've been paid money too, in most cases. So, like, try to explain to them. And finally, not reading the manual. There are many judges that don't know basics. Like, for example, prefers the world motions are from the beginning of time. Like, for example, how do you evaluate counterprops and political capital within debating? Like, for example, what do we consider an extension? And so many basic questions that are just answered within the damn manual, and people decide not to read it. This is not, by the way, the top judges also. I think large pool of the people who are like wings or like not that experienced chairs also don't read the manual, and also don't also don't take into consideration like these particular rules when they're evaluating, and they should. Also for speakers should also read the manual so that they know the rules and stuff like that. But this is bad because many of the sometimes in the prep series, but also maybe at the major, you'll get these technicalized motions where you just need to know the rules of debating in order to debate them properly. And if you don't, you basically end up judging the round wrong and giving the wrong call, and this harms the speakers, as we explained, because it's not a meritocratic system. Okay, that's it. Hope this helps. There'll be a final video that's about how to CA a competition, but maybe that one will come out a bit later because, you know, it takes a bit more time to prepare, and I assume it's going to be longer. But I hope this judging module helped out many people. I hope you guys become better judges. And yeah, see you in the next video.